Okay, we're going to start right here where we left off in part 1. It is a difficult part to read as well as hear, but we're going to pick up right where we left off, and I'll be reading a tiny portion of what I finished with in part 1 just to move right on into part 2. After Shanann was dead, Bella walked into their bedroom holding her blanket and asked what was wrong with Mommy. He believed Bella may have woken up by the noise. He told Bella Mommy didn't feel good, and Bella thought Shanann was sleeping. He wrapped Shanann face down in the bedsheet, which was recovered at the oil site. Shanann was still wearing her shirt, bra, and underwear she had on when she got into bed. He tried to carry Shanann down the stairs and lost his grip, and ended up having to pull her down the stairs. Bella watched him drag Shanann down the stairs and began to cry and said, "What's wrong with Mommy?" He told Bella again that her mommy didn't feel good. Bella is a smart girl and knew what was going on. Bella never touched Shanann or tried to wake her up. Bella followed him down the stairs. He backed his pickup into the driveway and put Shanann into the back seat of his truck of the floorboard. When he returned inside, Celeste was in her room and starting to get out of bed. He believed the noise of Shanann's feet hitting the stairs as he dragged her down the stairs may have woken up Celeste. Bella and Celeste were light sleepers. Bella and Celeste were walking around the house. Every time he sees pictures of Bella and Celeste, he doesn't understand how it all could have happened. Being a dad was the best part of his life, and he took it all away. He felt like someone else had control over him that day, and he wasn't able to fight back. When the prosecutor said Bella bit her tongue repeatedly, he wanted to bang his head up against the wall. At that point, he put his lunchbox in the truck, and then put both Bella and Celeste in the back of his truck on the bench seat. Shanann was laying on the floorboard. Bella asked, "Is Mommy okay?" And he told Bella and Celeste that Mommy would be fine. Bella and Celeste each had a blanket with them, and Celeste had a stuffed animal, a little barking dog. He put a gas can in the back of his truck and felt like he could get rid of himself at the same time. He didn't feel like he deserved to live or be on this earth after what had happened. After everything happened, he considered taking his own life as well. He did not commit suicide because he felt like if he did it out at the oil site, he may have ended up hurting more people than just himself. He knew there were other people in the area and didn't want something to catch fire or blow up. He does not own any weapons, but nothing seemed right that morning. As he drove to the oil site with Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, he was nervous, shaking, and didn't know what was going to happen. He knew at that moment that his life was completely changed. See, it just doesn't make sense. He was nervous and shaking and didn't know what was going to happen. He tried to picture the long ride out to the oil site and wondered if he could have saved his girl's life. That has always got to me. In the actual interview, they asked him, "What were you thinking?" And he said, "I was just trying to figure out how I could save my kids, save my girls." Okay, that makes no sense. Because, just to be blunt, how can you save them? Just don't kill them. Why would he be thinking, how can he save his kids? That makes no sense to me, and it never has. He wasn't thinking during the entire drive. He has read books about how dads could never hurt their children, and he has wondered, was I even a dad at one point? I don't know. See, that doesn't make sense. I mean, why would you need to read a book to know dads could never hurt their children? I mean, everybody knows that. I mean, that's common sense. You know, a 5-year-old child knows that, right? And so I don't get why he said he's read books about how a dad could never hurt their children. I don't know. And then, was I even a dad at one point? I wish they would have said, what do you mean by that? You know, can you kind of elaborate what you mean by that? And before reading these books, wasn't it common knowledge that dads could never hurt their children, or should never hurt their children? I mean, it just makes no sense. And then it goes on to say, he had wanted his whole life to be a dad, and nothing made sense, including the oil tank. Well, yeah, it doesn't make sense, but I wished it could have been elaborated on just a bit more. It says, during the rides, the girls were dozing on and off and held each other and laid in each other's laps. During the ride, Bella says, Daddy, it smells. When he got to the oil tank, he took Shanann out of the back of the truck and pulled her over and laid her on the ground near where she was ultimately buried. Well, the position she was found in didn't sound like she was laid, you know, on her knees with one of her arms up above her head. That's not laid. Bella and Celeste were still sitting in the back of the truck as he removed Shanann. Bella and Celeste asked him, what are you doing to Mommy? And he doesn't recall what he told them. He returned to the truck, and Cece was first. Celeste had a blue Yankees blanket, and he put it over her head. He strangled Celeste in the back seat. But see, she wasn't strangled. But that's what he said. He put his hand over Celeste's mouth and nose, over the blanket, and his other hand around the front of her neck. Bella was seated right beside Celeste as he strangled her. Bella didn't say anything. He had no idea how long it took to strangle or smother Celeste because he had no concept of time. With regard to what he was thinking at the time, he says, quote, I wasn't. If I was thinking, this wouldn't have happened. Or any partial hint of what I feel for those girls and what I feel for my wife, then none of this would have happened. I wasn't thinking. After Celeste died, he took Celeste out of the truck, walked her up to the oil tank, opened the hatch, and dropped her in feet first. He believed it was tight when he put Celeste through the hatch on the oil tank. He did not have to hit Celeste into the tank, but may have had to manipulate her to get her inside. He closed the hatch on the oil tank and returned to his truck. When he got in the truck, Bella asked him, what happened to Cece? And Bella asked him in her soft voice, is the same thing going to happen to me as Cece? And he's not sure if he told Bella yes, like a horrible person. He then put the same Yankees blanket over Bella's head and did the same thing. Bella said, Daddy, no. And it was the last words that she ever spoke. He put his hand over Bella's nose and mouth, over the blanket, and his other hand around the front of her neck. With regard to Bella's injuries in her mouth, Bella's head was twisting back and forth under the blanket while he smothered and strangled her. He could hear Bella grunt as she tried to breathe. He noticed a couple of spots over Bella's eyes when he picked her up. That was not on the autopsy. The autopsy said nothing about any bruising or anything like that on her eyes. So I don't know if it just wasn't noted on the autopsy or if he was just saying things. I don't know, but it wasn't noted on the autopsy. He walked Bella up to a separate oil tank, opened the hatch, and dropped her inside feet first. Bella seemed harder to get into the tank than Celeste, but he just had to manipulate her to get her inside. He does not know why he put Bella and Celeste in separate oil tanks. Bella and Celeste were not alive when he put them into the tanks. After he put Bella into the oil tank, he returned to where Shanann was located and started to clear away some weeds with his rake. The rake broke when he used it to remove the weeds, and he left part of it out at the site. He does not believe he ever thought about going back for the broken part of the rake. He dug a hole with his shovel and put Shanann inside. Shanann was not bleeding or cut when he buried her. He recalled that Shanann's eyes were bloodshot. There again, the autopsy does not say that. Quite the contrary. It said there was no sort of vein breakage or anything with her eyes. So either he was just seeing red or seeing things, or I don't know. Shanann had not partially given birth when he buried her in the ground. Shanann was wearing a shirt and blue-colored underwear. Every time he closes his eyes, he hears Bella say, "Daddy, no." He hears it every day. Just thinking about the oil tank makes him want to throw up. Frank Rosek said at his sentencing that he was trying to separate everyone, and that was not true. He felt like someone else was in control of what he was doing. He did not consider the fact that it may have helped with detection by putting the girls in separate oil tanks. He didn't consider putting the girls with Shanann because everything happened so fast. And I had no time, really, to have a thought that was my own. And that always has gotten me, too. He said he didn't have time. And then he said he didn't have any thought that was his own. What does that mean? Whose thoughts was he going with? Whose recommendations or opinions or instruction? I mean, I don't get it. How else do you look at that? When the comment says I didn't have time to have a thought of my own, I really wish they would have asked him, what do you mean a thought of your own? Can you elaborate? Maybe explain what you mean by that? I mean, was there somebody else giving you thoughts, or what? What does that mean? I don't understand that. It says he didn't purposely try to separate any of them. And it was Rourke, I know also, that said he tried to separate them in death. And that was Rourke's theory, that is why he put them in separate tanks. His theory was he wanted to separate them even in death. That's what he said. With regard to the trash bags found at the oil tank site, he didn't want the girls looking at Shanann in the back seat of his truck. So he placed one trash bag on her feet and the other around her head. The girls didn't know what was going on. I can only pray they didn't know what was going on. After the murders, the Yankee blanket was still in his truck and he threw it away. He stopped by a construction dumpster in his neighborhood and threw away his clothes and the Yankees blanket on his way home from work on Monday. He keeps extra boots and clothes in his work truck, which he changed into after the murders. He felt like taking Celeste and Bella's life was caused by an anger with Shanann that he took out on everyone in front of him that morning. Why was he so angry with Shanann? I mean, why? Shanann, when she went to Arizona, said they had had the best talk in a long time. They had planned a trip to Aspen. She had just got home. What could he have been so angry about? It says he had never been that angry before. And this was like the epitome of being angry. He had rage. And he just lost his mind. He was angry with Shanann over separating him from his family. But see, there had been little random sporadic issues before with his family. And he didn't get like this. You know, it happened in North Carolina. For crying out loud, it happened while they were there as well. And he didn't get that rageful. So why, after she got home that night, would something that happened last week, even the week prior, made him that rageful right then? it just doesn't really make sense at all. And yes, I can understand he would get upset that Shanann or whatever told him while they was in North Carolina. Now remember that. She was upset. She was mad as hell, just to be honest. She was very upset about the whole thing with the nuts and everything. And granted, she did tell him that. The kids are not going to see your family. You're not going to see your family, whatever. But you know what? He did see his family. He even went to see his grandmother, and the girls were with him. And then after they got back home, Shanann wrote him that note. And she was like, telling him she's going to call a truce with his mom. She don't want to come between him and his family. I mean, she told him all that in that note. You know, so she was trying to fix it at that point. So why is it when she got home, then suddenly the rage came out? I mean, granted, I can understand he was probably upset in North Carolina. He was probably upset when they got back home from Arizona or North Carolina before she went to Arizona. You know, but I mean, he wasn't in a rage, right? Or whatever he says, it wasn't there. So why did all of a sudden that morning when she got home, that rage kicked in after she had already told him she's going to call a truce? She's sorry, how much she missed him, how much she loved him, all that. I don't know. Was somebody instigating it, egging it on? Or was he just thinking on it? I don't know. Who knows? I wish he would say. He probably doesn't even know to say it. He needs to be asked the right questions is what he needs. Anyway, when he and Shanann got married, he told his family he didn't need them anymore because he had Shanann. Okay, that was on him. If that's what he told them, that was on him. He cussed his mother out and did things to his family he never thought he would do. Okay, there again, he shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have. You know, really. I mean, that's his mother. He shouldn't have cussed her out. And he shouldn't have done things to his family that he thought he would never do. But at the same time, come on. He's his own person. He didn't have to do it. And then he goes on to say he is not sure if Shanann coached him or not, referring to how she treated his family. Or he treated his family. Okay, so what does that mean? He can be coached into doing something to someone he loves? Is that what he means there? Because he said that. He's not sure if Shanann coached him or not. Well, if he don't know, then is he sure that he could have possibly been coached by someone to have this super duper anger, rage that he had for Shanann when she got home? If he thinks himself that maybe he is that easily coached, well, I mean, you know, I'm just saying, he was angry since July of 2018 when Shanann told him his parents could never see their granddaughters again. Well, yeah, okay. July of 2018. What was he doing July of 2018? He said he had blinders on. He wasn't even thinking about his family much, right? But he did spend an awful lot of time with someone. Sure did. And if he was angry since July of 2018, then why didn't he talk to her about it in North Carolina? Why didn't they have this discussion before she went to Arizona? And maybe they did. Maybe that's why Shanann wrote that in her letter to him. I'm going to call a truce with your mother. She says, I want to get along with your family, you know, and I want them to get along with me. Our families need to join together with love, not hate. She said all that. And obviously he took it into consideration because even his girlfriend, Nicole, she said on their last date, Saturday, the 11th, that he was completely unplugged. It's like he wasn't even there. She said he wasn't even interested in hearing about the apartment she had found for him. All the way to the point that he told her, I've done found one myself. I'm supposed to go look at it Monday. Well, she wants to know what apartment it was. And he couldn't remember. He couldn't remember because I don't think he had one picked out. I think he was regretting what he'd done and he was wanting to be back with his family. Because of that note Shanann wrote, for one. So if he had been angry since July of 2018, then why, when she got home from Arizona, was he in a rage? Why did that rage wait till then? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. All these questions floating in my head that I wish would have been asked to him to elaborate on just a bit more, because you gotta admit, it just doesn't make sense. Why that angry and that mad that morning? And then he goes on to say, I don't know if that had something to do with it, that something made me just triggered it. And then it just like all that pent up from the wedding and everything. It's like a long fuse that finally went to its end. Okay, the wedding thing was forgiven and forgotten, put behind them, moved on. I mean, I even saw a video where Cindy was at the hospital with her when Celeste was born. You know, she was there. So obviously, the families had called a truce. And then the Nutgate thing happened again, and, you know, I guess since July, but still, why would all that rage come out that morning? Was he coached to remember all the bad? Who knows? Something happened. Something damn sure happened. But why that morning? Why that quick? The minute she gets home. I mean, come on. Discrepancy. There's too many missing puzzle pieces to every one of his confessions. Every one of them. And they all have things to make you wonder, what? Huh? Not your thoughts? You know, it just doesn't make sense. And I know people's gonna say, well, you can't believe Chris. He's a liar. Okay, I can go with that. But how can you believe parts of what he says and not take other parts into consideration too? You can't go 100% on, he did it this way and he did it that way, but then other parts just completely overlook them, and it seems like that's what's been done, just to be honest. He didn't have a thought that was his own. All the way to the oil field, he was wondering how he could save his kids. You know, he had been with his wife since he was mad about Nutgate in July, and he was just being, you know, kind of quiet and distant, we call it pouting is what we call it here. I don't know, some people may have different, we call it pouting, sold up and pouting. Seems like that's what he was doing. But then all of a sudden that morning, I don't know. If you understand what I'm talking about, and you as well can see what I mean by it just doesn't add up. It just seems like there's something else here. In between these sentences of confession, there's different questions that need to be asked. Needs answered, you know. And I'm not saying Chris didn't do nothing. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think that you do understand what I'm saying here. When he answered a question in a certain way, it shouldn't have just been ignored and looked over, you know, and on to a different question, because some of his answers needed another answer with them. He says his mother and Shanann never got along after he proposed in 2012. Well, that's terrible. You know, it really is. And I hate that. But it's not that uncommon. Really, it's not. I mean, you sit here and you think of 10 people off the top of your head, and I'll guarantee you out of those 10, you're going to come up with probably at least half that the mother and daughter-in-law don't get along. I mean, just saying. The mother and son-in-law. I mean, it happens. It's very unfortunate, but it does happen. So, a mother and a daughter-in-law not getting along is really not that uncommon. It's really not. I'll just be honest with you. My mother-in-law and me didn't get along. I mean, we just didn't. And in my situation, it definitely was not because my husband was a mama's boy, because he absolutely was not. You know, he just was not. His little brother was, but he wasn't. She just didn't like me, you know? She just didn't. And just to be honest, I wasn't a big fan of her either. But at the same time, you know, Randy was just like, whatever, you know, my husband's just like, whatever, you know. But guess what? As the years went by, and I'm going to tell you it took a lot of years, I ain't going to kid you. It took a lot of years. But we get along great now. Wonderful. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I really don't. It just happened. But it's not that uncommon. It goes on to say his mother possibly thought Shanann wasn't good enough. Well, maybe that is what his mother thought, but to be honest, that isn't what my mother-in-law thought. I don't know why, but my husband's family is very country, and I am too. I really am. I'm super country myself, but they're just really country folk, and I guess I'm just a little less country, I guess I could say. And just to say it like it is, she always said that I tried to act better than everybody, and that's so not true. I was stuck up. That's what she said. I've never been stuck up, right? Ever. But I have been very shy person. And she was mistaken me being shy with thinking I was quote unquote stuck up. His mother always thought Shanann was hiding something from her past, from him. Well, past is your past, period. And you can't live in the past, no matter what your past is. That's where you want to leave it. Everybody's got some skeletons here and there in their closet they're not proud of, All of us has got a bit of a shady past, some worse than others. But as long as you leave it back there, and you pick up, and you make a different future, that's what matters, right? And you can't judge someone from their past, not if they have tried to make their future better. You shouldn't do that. You should not judge people by their past if they're proving their future to be better. I'm just saying. And that's all I'm going to say about that. His mother and sister didn't like Shanann, and felt like Shanann took him away from them and moved him out to Colorado. His grandmother was the only one who came to his wedding. He danced with his grandmother and his friend's mother during the groom's dance at his wedding. He would never have thought his marriage and relationship to Shanann was bad if he hadn't met Kessinger. Okay, that deserves another question. I would have said, I had the opportunity to come back with a question to that. I would say, what do you mean? Is it because you felt different with her? Or is it because the things she may have told you that you shouldn't be dealing with this, you shouldn't be putting up with that, that's not right, marriage is not supposed to be that? You know what I mean? Just like he kind of said above, coaching. I would have asked him that. And then I would have said, or was it a little bit of both? Was she saying things as well as showing you things? How marriage can be different. What does she have to do with that equation? I would have asked him that, because those answers would be important in my opinion. Very important. It goes on to say he looks outside every day and wonders, what could he have been doing with his kids? Right now, I would have a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and more than likely a 1-month-old son and a beautiful wife. And right now, it's just me. Okay, there again, see, here I am nitpicking, but still, he sounds very adamant that he would have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. But why more than likely a 1-month-old? Because the more than likely makes me feel like there was a question. Like, maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. So why more than likely? I don't get that either. Because it was an absolute. She was 15 weeks pregnant. Then got, had the ultrasound and everything. So why more than likely a 1-month-old son? It would seem like he would say, I would have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-month-old son. But why the more than likely? I don't know. And with regard to finding out Shanann was pregnant with Nico, he says Shanann was pregnant with Nico within 2 weeks of trying. He was surprised and scared when he found out Shanann was pregnant. Well, I can see that. I mean, it was shocking because she did have issues with the other two, fertility and this and that, and even high-risk pregnancy, right? So, yeah, I can see him being shocked. Scared? I guess I can see that. But at the same time, if you were trying, then you should have felt confident in your situation before you even tried to bring another baby into the world. So, see, the scared part kind of confuses me. I could say scared on account of financial. They were in pretty much financial straits. But you knew that before you tried. Financial situations didn't change that much in 2 weeks. And you know, you've already said you were already talking to Nicole then. So did just talking to her, is that what made you scared? I don't know. He may have not looked excited about the pregnancy because he may have felt guilty about talking to Kessinger at work. Yeah, I believe that. I believe he did feel guilty. There was never any indications of domestic violence between he and Shanann during their relationship. And I've also saw a screenshot, and I said that about the Netflix documentary where it mentioned the domestic violence at the end. Domestic violence is always a good thing to watch flags for, always. And it's never a bad thing to mention, to be cautious, you know. But with it being at the end of the Netflix documentary, you know, it could lead new people to believe behind closed doors there was domestic violence in their home. And I said, I don't believe there was. Okay, and then some people, not many, but 2 or 3 come back and said, oh, I'm sure there was, you know, emotional and just different kinds of abuse like that other than physical. Well, it's possible, I guess, but I still don't think there was. Because Shanann would have told her friends. She proved that when he started acting different, you know, she talked, she reached out to people. However, she also told her friends he's never acted this way. He has never, ever been this way. So, I still don't think there was. And another thing, her brother, Frankie Jr., Frankie, I actually saw a screenshot where he had, I don't know if it was a comment or he had made a post or what it was, but he verified 100% there was no domestic violence in their house. He said because he knows his sister well enough that had Chris have been doing something shady like that, you know, she would have come unglued on him, period. I mean, she would have been like a wildcat on him. So even he didn't think there was, and I don't either. Personally, I don't. I can't call 100% shot because, of course, I didn't live with them, but I don't see it. Just knowing what I know with the way Shanann will reach out to her friends when she knows something's wrong. And with her making the statement herself, he has never been this way. So, just going off of that. He says Shanann was the dominant person who always took control of everything. Well, she admitted that herself, right? He says he always just went with the flow and always wanted to be in the back row. Well, that's what he preferred. A lot of people do. And she let him do that. I mean, she let him do that. She handled stuff and she let him stay low-key and keep a low profile. If that's what he wanted to do, she was fine with that. He says he never felt belittled by Shanann. He says he was the introvert and Shanann took control of most situations. And he was good with that. I mean, that's how he liked it. That's what he wanted. He hated being in videos, but he went along with it because it was for Shanann's business. He couldn't tell Shanann he didn't want to be in the videos because it would have made her mad. Well, okay, so what? I can assure you she would have wanted to know, even if she got mad. But she may not have. You know, she may not have. Because she already knew, obviously, and understood that he was an introvert because she was the dominant one. So she may have completely understood. He didn't give her the opportunity to know because he never told her. And that's what I mean You can't act and be something you're not all the time, because you're not going to be comfortable in your own skin. And he says he could never be himself around her. Well, you should have told her. You would be surprised. I believe she would have understood. And she might have got mad to begin with. But then if she noticed that it really bothered you as much as she loved him, she would have been okay. But you gotta tell her. How is she supposed to know if you don't tell her? All she can do is assume. Assume you're okay with it. I mean, if you cook your husband chicken noodle soup every night, and he acts like he just loves it. Oh, he loves it. He never complains and he just loves it. You're going to assume he loves your chicken noodle soup, right? And so you're going to keep cooking him chicken noodle soup. But he hates it. He can't stand it. He can barely stomach to eat it. But he don't want to tell you that, or you're going to get mad. So what do? You tell her anyway, because you're sick of eating the soup. And you don't have to be hateful about it. You just be like, I just don't like them. I just don't want it anymore. I'm done with that. I don't think she would have got mad. I think she would have just went a different route. But there ain't no way in hell you would know if you don't tell her. And again, I'm so sorry for my scratchy voice and my sinuses. I've got this allergy thing going on again. Got to get my Zyrtec filled in the morning and it'll get all better. But right now it's pretty rough. I'm sorry. Okay, and it goes on to say Shanann was a good salesperson and could have sold everything we were wearing back to us without us even knowing. She had the gift of gab. And that's amazing. A lot of people don't have that. You know, the most successful people in the world are the ones that do have that gift of gab. They do have that negotiation and all that. You know, that they can draw people in just by talking to them. It's a talent, really. Especially when you enjoy doing it. That's a good thing. And that's what balanced them out. She had the gift of gab. She was a go-getter. She would go out there on a limb and just do it. And yet he was an introvert. Kind of like Dolly Parton, you know. Dolly's that way. She's a go-getter. She's straight out there. But how many times have you ever seen her husband? You know, he stays at home. He lets her shine, but he don't like the spotlight. He's an introvert. And he did go with her once on the red carpet, and she was just having a great time. She'll tell you this story. And she thought he was too. But you know what? He told her he didn't like it. It's not for him. He wants her to shine, but he will watch her at home on their own TV. He's an introvert, and she's fine with that. And they've been married 50 years, but you've never seen him. But they're very much in love, you know. It can work. It can work. But the first step is opening up and telling the truth. You can't keep playing a charade, because if you do, the other one's never going to know. They're going to think you're enjoying it too. I mean, if Dolly's husband hadn't told her he was not comfortable with that, then she would probably be getting him ready and pulling him along with her all these years. And they wouldn't have lasted. I mean, I'm not saying he would have done nothing crazy or anything, but they wouldn't have lasted. Because, yeah, opposites can attract. They can. But only if they can communicate. They have to be able to communicate those opposites and come to agreements. You can't just play a charade. Oh, my goodness. I wished I could have been their marriage counselor. And he says he hated being out there for everyone to see and was against doing their gender reveal on Facebook Live. But I bet Shanann didn't know that. He didn't tell her because it would make her mad. Well, it might not have. She may have actually sat down and talked to him about it. How are you going to know if you don't try? With regard to what Watts planned to do about his missing family, he says he had no idea what he was going to do. He didn't understand how he was able to act normal around his co-workers. His plan was not well thought out and not a criminal's minds type of thing. And with regard to how Watts felt when he wore the Thrive patches, he says when he put on the Duo burn patches, his Apple Watch would show he was exercising all day because of his increased heart rate. When he wore the duo burn patches, it felt like he was working out all day. Cassinger told him he would sometimes fall asleep on her couch in the middle of a conversation, and then would wake up and finish what he was saying. Watts indicated it must have been related to insomnia. Okay, Cassinger's the only one that's ever said he done that. All the other people he's been around, having conversations with, including his wife, his friends, his parents, his in-laws, nobody else has ever said he fell asleep in the middle of a conversation. So he only done it around her. And some people said, well, maybe it's because she has a small apartment and not enough oxygen in it, and that makes you sleepy. See, I can't buy that. Because if that were a fact, why wouldn't he have done it while they were in North Carolina when they were in a small motel room? So see, it's something else. Something else was making him fall asleep and just wake up in the middle of a conversation when he was with her. Obviously, he said it and she did too. So what was it? It does make you curious. He said he felt different on the duo patches than when he wore any other thigh patch. The duo burn patches made him feel like he could go longer and longer each day. He only slept approximately 3 hours each night. Well, that part 2 here will be coming. I'll be coming back real soon with part 3 of the transcript of the Chris Watts interview from Dodge County Correction. If you learned anything new in this video, I would truly appreciate a thumbs up. Hope you all have a great day, night, evening, wherever you may be. This is UnJustified.